Have you ever stood in the middle of a packed concert, a bustling party, or even a family reunion, surrounded by laughter, conversation, and hundreds of people, yet felt completely and utterly alone? Not just alone in the sense of being single or without a partner. No, this is different. This is a deep, hollow ache that sits in your chest even when people are talking to you, smiling at you, or physically touching your arm. It's the strange paradox of being physically connected to the world but emotionally disconnected from everyone in it. This experience has a name: loneliness in a crowd. And if you've felt it, you're far from the only one. In fact, some of the most socially successful people, those who seem to have endless friends, invitations, and notifications, report the highest levels of this specific kind of loneliness. Today we're going to dive deep into the psychology behind why this happens. We'll explore the evolutionary roots of human connection, the hidden differences between social contact and true belonging, the personality traits that make some people more vulnerable, the neurochemistry that keeps the feeling alive, and most importantly, what actually helps when you're stuck in this painful state. By the end, you'll not only understand why you or someone you know can feel isolated in a sea of people, but you'll have real, evidence-based tools to start shifting that experience. Let's begin. Part 1. The Evolutionary Paradox. Humans are wired for connection. About 2 million years ago, our ancestors who stuck together in small tribes were far more likely to survive predators, find food, and raise offspring. Being ostracized or left alone literally meant death. Because of this, our brains evolved an incredibly sensitive social alarm system. When we feel disconnected, the same neural pathways light up as when we experience physical pain. Yes, social rejection and loneliness register in the brain almost identically to breaking a bone or burning your hand. Here's where the modern twist comes in. For the first time in human history, we are surrounded by more people than ever before, yet many of us feel less truly connected than our ancestors did in tribes of 50 to 150 individuals. We have hundreds, sometimes thousands of friends online. We live in cities of millions. We go to workplaces with dozens or hundreds of co-workers. And yet the brain still measures belonging the way it did on the savannah, not by the number of bodies nearby, but by the depth and authenticity of the bonds. When that depth is missing, the ancient alarm goes off, even if you're literally shoulder to shoulder with strangers on a subway. So loneliness in a crowd isn't a personal failing. It's a mismatch between what your brain expects, a small tribe of deeply known people, and what modern life often delivers, large groups of shallow or conditional connections. Part 2. The 3 types of loneliness hiding in plain sight. Psychologists now recognize that loneliness isn't one single feeling. Researchers like Dr. Ami Rokash and more recently the work coming out of the loneliness labs at the University of Chicago have broken it down into 3 main categories. People who feel lonely in crowds usually suffer from one, or a combination, of the following. Intimacy loneliness. This is the absence of a close, confiding relationship where you feel fully seen and accepted. You can be at a party surrounded by acquaintances who like you, but if there's no one who truly knows the real you, the messy parts, the doubts, the dreams you're afraid to say out loud, your brain registers emotional starvation. Relational loneliness. This is the lack of a broader friendship network where you feel mutual care and regular contact. Many high-achieving professionals fall into this trap. They have colleagues, gym buddies, neighbors they wave to, but no one they could call at 2 a.m. if everything fell apart. Collective loneliness. This is the newest and least talked about form. It's the feeling of not belonging to a larger group that shares your values, identity, or purpose. Think of someone who moves to a big city for a job but never finds their people. No community, no club, no religious or cultural group where they feel a sense of we. When you're in a crowd and you experience a sharp pang of loneliness, it's usually because one or more of these 3 needs is screaming for attention while being ignored. Part 3. The personality traits that amplify the feeling. Not everyone who goes to a party feels lonely. So why do some people walk into a room of 200 and immediately feel like an alien? Research points to several traits and experiences that act like amplifiers. High sensitivity, sensory processing sensitivity. Highly sensitive people process social stimuli more deeply. They notice micro-expressions, subtle exclusions, tones of voice that others miss. In a crowd, instead of feeling energized, they become overwhelmed by all the input and retreat inward. Introversion, especially the anxious or restrained subtype. Classic introverts need recovery time after social interaction. But a lesser-known subtype called anxious introverts want connection desperately yet fear rejection so much that they hold back. They stand on the edge of the group, smile politely, and feel excruciatingly lonely because they never quite join. Attachment styles. Anxious and avoidant people with anxious attachment crave closeness but constantly worry they're too much or not enough. In groups, they scan for signs of rejection. Avoidant attached individuals protect themselves by keeping emotional distance, so even when people reach out, they don't let them in. Both end up feeling unseen. Perfectionism and fear of vulnerability. Many who feel lonely in crowds are secretly terrified that if people knew the real them, they'd be rejected. So they wear a mask, funny, competent, chill, whatever the group seems to reward, and then feel hollow because no one is connecting with the actual person behind the mask. Past social trauma, bullying, chronic exclusion in school, betrayal by a former friend group. These experiences teach the nervous system that groups are dangerous. Even years later, the body reacts to a crowd with the same fight-or-flight chemistry it once used to survive actual ostracism. Part 4. The silent role of social media and modern life. Let's be honest, Instagram, TikTok, and endless group chats have made this worse. Social media gives us the illusion of connection while removing the very ingredients that create real belonging. Sustained eye contact, shared vulnerability, physical presence, and the slow unfolding of getting to know someone over time. When you scroll through perfectly curated lives right before walking into a social setting, a phenomenon psychologists call upward social comparison kicks in. Everyone else looks like they're having the time of their lives, deeply bonded, effortlessly cool. You feel defective by comparison, even though you're seeing highlight reels, not real life. Add to that the fact that many modern friendships are what researcher Robin Dunbar calls time rule friendships. We maintain them with occasional texts and likes rather than the 7 to 10 hours a month of quality time required to move someone from friend to close friend in the brain's categorization system. We are, in short, overfed on shallow contact and starving for depth. Part 5. What's actually happening in the brain and body? When you feel lonely in a crowd, your brain doesn't just register sadness. It triggers a full stress response. Cortisol and adrenaline rise. The vagus nerve, which normally helps us feel calm and connected, becomes underactive. Areas associated with social threat, like the amygdala, light up, while the reward centers that normally activate during warm interaction stay quiet. Over time, chronic loneliness creates inflammation in the body almost identical to chronic physical stress. Studies now link prolonged loneliness to higher rates of heart disease, dementia, depression, and even early death, on par with smoking 15 cigarettes a day. In the moment, though, the most painful part is hypervigilance. You become exquisitely attuned to signs you don't belong. Someone checking their phone while you talk, a conversation you're not included in, laughter you're not sure is about you. The brain, trying to protect you from rejection, starts looking for exit routes before you're even hurt. Ironically, this self-protective scanning makes genuine connection harder, creating a vicious feedback loop. Part 6. Breaking the cycle, evidence-based ways to feel less alone in groups. Here's the good news. This form of loneliness is highly treatable. The brain is remarkably plastic, and small, repeated shifts can rewire your experience of crowds from threatening to nourishing. Reframe the feeling. Start telling yourself, my brain is signaling an unmet need for connection, not proof that I'm unlovable. Naming the feeling accurately lowers amygdala activation almost immediately. Practice active listening presence. Instead of trying to be interesting, become deeply interested. Ask follow-up questions. Reflect back what you hear. When you give someone your full attention, two things happen. They feel seen, which feels good for them, and you activate your own mirror neuron system, which creates an internal sense of connection. Use the 3-second rule for vulnerability. Researcher Brené Brown found that sharing one small authentic truth within the first few minutes of a conversation dramatically increases feelings of closeness. It doesn't have to be heavy, just real. I always feel a little nervous at these events, or I'm way more introverted than I look, gives others permission to drop their mask too. Seek weak tie rituals. Harvard's 85-year grant study on adult development found that casual, repeated interactions with the same people, baristas, dog park regulars, classmates, predict happiness even more than deep friendships in some cases. Join a class, sports team, or volunteer shift that meets weekly. Familiar faces lower the social threat system over time. Curate micro-belonging moments. Collective loneliness responds to shared identity. Wear the band t-shirt. Bring up the niche interest. Use the phrase, people like us do things like this. Identity cues trigger an instant, ancient sense of tribe in the brain. Limit pre-event social media. Give yourself a 60-minute no-scroll buffer before social events. Upward comparison is like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. It makes the need worse. Practice self-compassion breaks in real time. When the loneliness wave hits mid-event, place a hand on your chest, take a slow breath, and silently say, "This is hard right now, and that's okay. I'm here with myself." Self-touch and self-kindness activate the same caregiving circuits that another person's hug would. Therapy modalities that work especially well: cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, to challenge rejection-sensitive thoughts; interpersonal therapy, IPT, to grieve past social losses and practice new patterns; group therapy. Ironically, the best place to heal group-based loneliness; compassion-focused therapy, CFT. For those with high shame; MDMA-assisted therapy, in clinical trials, showing remarkable results. 4. Social connection deficits stemming from trauma. Closing. If you've ever stood in a crowd and felt like you were on the other side of a glass wall, know this: that feeling is real, it's common, and it's not a life sentence. Loneliness in a crowd is ultimately a signal, not a verdict. It's your nervous system's way of saying, "We were built for deeper water than this. Let's find it." Sometimes that means leaving the crowd for a while and investing in 1 or 2 relationships with the kind of ferocious intention most people reserve for their careers. Sometimes it means staying in the crowd but changing how you show up, lowering the mask, offering your real self in tiny brave doses, and watching who leans in. And sometimes it simply means learning to be the first one to cross the room and say, "Hey, I don't really know anyone here either. Want to talk?" Because the paradox of loneliness in a crowd is this: the moment you risk revealing that you feel alone, you often discover you're not. You were never invisible. You were just waiting for someone safe enough to see you, and sometimes that someone has to start with you seeing yourself, choosing yourself, and stepping forward anyway. You belong here. Not because you've earned it. Not because you're fixed or perfect or extroverted enough. You belong here because you're human. And humans were never meant to do this alone. So take a breath. Look around. And when you're ready, reach out. There's someone in every crowd who's secretly hoping you will.